Could somebody raise their hand and just go ahead and say the difference between science and technology? I'm going to have to choose a name. Anybody want to
Sir,
volunteer?
sir.
Go again.
Sir. Sir, when I sir.
Repeat.
Sir, when I yes, sir, please, sir.
The question is, what is the difference between science and technology? We went over that last class. Do you remember the difference between science and technology? All right, let me help you out. So science,
Sir, no, sir.
all right, so go back to it. So in science, we discover new things, right? As we spoke about last class, right? We discover new things. And what we do in technology,
Sir, we invent.
right? Perfect. So we discover in science, we discover new things that have already been, that have already existed. And then we invent new things in technology. All right, let's go back just to for the persons who weren't here, right? So yes, science is the study of nature, and we must discover things in nature, discover phenomena in nature, right, and natural occurrences. And for technology, we apply knowledge from science, right, and we invent things that can be used to improve our quality of life. All right. We also did some laboratory rules. Anybody remember some laboratory rules before we continue?
Sir,
I received three.
I got in late yesterday, so I didn't get to hear.
Sir.
All right, no problem.
Sir, don't for eating at, sir.
No
Sir,
eating and
don't.
drinking, like this guy here.
Never run in the
You never run in
No
the
running in the lab should not be playing.
don't touch the chemical without a glove.
right, like this guy here. All right, so we're good so far, and we must hold the equipment carefully, right? Carelessly, like this person here. Right? Now let's move on. So we'll now move to the scientific method, right? And the scientific method is essentially what we use as scientists. I'm going to have to mute someone's mic, right? I'm really sorry about this. All right, so, oh, and for the person who just, thank you so much. Right, so the scientific method is essentially used to study and to make investigations on different things we want to discover, but we must do it in a specific way and in a specific manner. So most scientists, Miss Nicole, would you please remove that? Thank you. Gordon, please remove that. Thank you. So most scientists use a common method to carry the investigations, right? And this type of method is called the scientific method. Remember, we want to discover new things, but we are not discovering it in any way or just using any random theory. We must prove a theory or carry out investigations in a certain way, right? When scientists are working on different problems, they have to work in a systematic way. And systematic, anyone knows the meaning for the word systematic? Ever heard that word before? Systematic.
No, sir.
It's right down here, right? Step by step, right? So systematic essentially means a step-by-step process, right? So when scientists are working on different problems or looking to solve a problem, we have to do it in a systematic way. and this is called the scientific method, right? So the overall way that we do it, the systematic way, is referred to as the scientific method. All right, so we move now to the stages of the scientific method. The first stage is making observations, right? So the first thing is that we we realize that something is wrong, right? We find out that there is something is wrong. For example, um, when making sugar and water, right? We realize that sugar dissolves faster in hot water rather than in cold water. So anybody know what I'm talking about? When you're mixing the sugar and water, it takes a longer time in cold water, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
So we notice a problem and we wonder why. Why is that possible? Why is that the case? Now, the second step is to identify the problem. So the problem is what we want to really find out, right? The problem is what we really want to find out from this experiment, right? So this problem would be that the the problem is that the sugar does not dissolve as fast, right, as in cold water as in hot water. That is our problem, and I want to figure out why. Then we go ahead and we develop a thesis, a hypothesis, right? So this is essentially um, suggesting a solution to the problem, right? We have our problem that we just identified. The next step is to come up with a theory that could solve this, right? To solve this, or a theory that could explain what is really happening, right? So the hypothesis must be able to be tested scientifically, right? if if we are going to come up with a hypothesis, right, it cannot be something that we are not able to test. That would not make any sense, and our experiment would not be effective. We want to find something that we're able to test. So, for example, we get a glass of cold water, and we get a glass of hot water, right? And then we use a stopwatch, for example, and we mix both of them, right? And then we realize that the hot water takes a faster time, right? So it should be able to be testable. This is very important. And I think you want to make a note of this, right? Remember that your notes will be available on Google Classroom, but you want to, when you're reading over, just remember this particular sentence right here. So as we said, we're using hot water and cold water to dissolve sugar. So the hotter the water, the faster the sugar should dissolve, right? So the temperature of the water and how long it takes to dissolve, this can be measured, right? So therefore, if this is our hypothesis right here. So our hypothesis, or our we coming up with a reason for this problem, right? Is that the hotter the water, the faster a teaspoon of sugar should dissolve. This is our hypothesis. This is our expectation. I hear a question.
Yes. Ariel Henry's trying to get in class.
I'm not here. Repeat again.
What? What did you
Repeat
say?
again. I'm not
Ariel
hearing.
Henry's trying to get into class.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Right.
Bro.
All right. Thank you for that. Right. So, in order for if we are going to have a hypothesis, as you said, it should be able to be tested, right? So our hypothesis, or our expectation, that the hotter the water, the faster a teaspoon of sugar should dissolve. That is our expectation, right? Then we can use a testable method to 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 test the temperature of the water, and to measure the temperature of the water, and to measure how long it takes to actually dissolve. These things can be measured, so therefore our hypothesis is testable, right? All right, so this is not really a point right here. Our next point is here: planning and investigation. 4. So planning helps to ensure that the experiment will work and to sort out problems before you begin. So in the effort of planning for an experiment, right, you are basically thinking ahead, right? You're basically coming up with ways in which you can get your results efficiently, and you can think about possible things that could cause your experiment not to be efficient, right? Are there any questions before we continue?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right,
No,
No,
sir.
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 all right, that's good. So the planning involves going ahead first, listing what we're going to need. So back to our hypothesis here, we're going to need a, a sample of hot water, and we're going to need a sample of cold water, right? And we're going to need teaspoons of sugar. We're going to need sugar, right? We're going to also need the something to measure the temperature of the water. Which what would that be? Anybody want to make a wild guess? What would that be? What will we use to measure the temperature? I see a chat.
Sir, a thermometer.
Right, we use a thermometer to measure the temperature of the water, right? And how long it takes to dissolve. What would you use to find that? To determine how long it takes for the sugar to dissolve. What would you use?
Sir, humidity.
No, we're trying to find out how long. So we're thinking about time, right? Thinking about
Sir, a
time. How long?
timer.
Right, some form of timer, right? So that's good. So we would need, of course, let's just go over again. When in planning, we need to list our apparatus and our materials that we're going to use in our experiment. So somebody highlighted a timer to determine how long it will take. Somebody highlighted a thermometer, right? And we spoke about sugar. Of course, we're going to need sugar because that's what we're going to test. And we're going to need a sample of hot water and a sample of cold water. So that's in our planning phase. Now, moving on, we're going to need to outline our steps now, right? Jerviana, I'm going to ask you to thank you so much. So listing the steps you will follow to do the experiment and deciding how you will record your results. This is still in our planning phase. We're still trying to figure out a way how we're going to actually go about this, right? So we list our steps. We list our steps in our method. What we're going to How we're going to go about testing which one dissolves faster, the cold water or the hot water, right? Somebody want to give it a try, right? How would you do that? Quickly, 2 minutes or so. Nobody want to volunteer? How would you test which one dissolves faster, the cold water or the hot water? How would you test that?
Sir.
All right, so I hear one person at a time. Go ahead, Akila. You're going to speak.
No, I was asking if you can repeat the question.
Right.
Yes.
So the question is, right, we listed the apparatus that we're going to need, right? We listed that we're going to need a thermometer. We listed that we're going to need a timer to determine how long it will take to dissolve. And we're going to need, of course, sugar, right? And then we're going to need a sample of hot water and cold water, right? So how would we go about this? Amanda, you want to try?
Um, sir, I'm still thinking about it.
All right. Let me give you a
Sir,
head
can
start.
I give it a try?
And that is Anderson. You may go ahead, Anderson.
Sir, I think that in order for us to know which water would
Dissolve.
dissolve the sugar
Sugar.
first, we would have to take samples of the sugar into different cups, and
Right.
then you would pour the cold water into one cup and the hot water into one cup, and you would
Perfect.
see how it would dissolve.
but we have to have what, the same amount of sugar, right?
Yes, sir.
We'd have to have the same amount of sugar in both cups, and then we'd
Yes,
have to
sir.
have,
So you need a measuring cup.
right, right, we'll need, of course, a measuring cup. And we have to start what? Well, we have to start at this, we have to start the timer when we place both of them in the cup,
Yes,
right? So that
yes, sir.
means we'd need two timers, right? Somebody look at the cold water and another person could look at the hot water. Just for argument's sake, we start both of them the same time, we place in the sugar at the same time, right? And we
Yeah.
look,
Sir,
try to observe. All right, here, Kristen.
or we could start one first and time it and see the amount of time and
Okay,
see how long the other one takes.
that could work also. But if you want to save on time, because remember we'll have to wait on the first one to finish, and then have to
Sir,
wait on the
I
second one for the
have
second.
the same amount of time for both of them, sir.
Yeah, we could. So it's really up to you. Is the planning? You could see which one works best for you. Um, if you want to do one at a time, and you think that that is the most efficient way, that's up to you because you're planning. You're using the scientific method to plan, right? Or if you believe, right, that could be more effective than if we did them at the same time because you could give both of them, right? You could give the both of them their separate attention because they will need attention when observing what will happen. All right, so we can move on. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so um, right, so we determine the equipment and the method required to solve the problem. That is step 5. So we plan the first, we plan how we're going to go about it. Then now we actually make decisions, right? We make decisions in the determining phase. We make decisions. Um, as we said, we were just planning a while ago. No, we're going to decide which step we're going to use. Are we going to do both of them at the same time, or we're going to just do one at a time? So it's really up to you as a scientist to think about which one is more effective and what you're trying to achieve. All right, number 6 says we must carry out the experiment. So this involves following the steps you listed earlier in 5 and making sure that you work safely, right? And we spoke about lab safety. We take lab safety very serious in science, right? To prevent any form of hurt to any children or any scientists at all, right? We want to ensure the safety of everyone, right? And we spoke about these already. So yes, we're going to collect now and process the results. So the results may be recorded in table. You can put the results in a paragraph format. It depends on the, the nature of the experiment. So what would our result be for this particular lab? Somebody want to give it a try? What would our result be?
Hey, sir, I think the result would be that the sugar would kind of dissolve in the hot water, sir.
Quicker, right?
Yeah,
Quicker than the cold
Yeah,
water.
I agree with you.
the cold water.
So go ahead.
Sir, I agree with her.
Right, so that is good. So our result would essentially be time, right? Time, the different times that we will get from the two different experiments. All right. The second to final step is the drawing conclusions from the results, right? So we after we get the results and we see where the time taken for the hot water to dissolve is say 20 seconds, and the time taken for the cold water to dissolve is 40 seconds, right? We could come to the conclusion then that the hot water, right, dissolves much quicker than the cold water. That would be our conclusion, right? Are we understanding that?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
beautiful.
sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
the last
Yes.
step is
Yes, sir.
so this is essentially just sharing results in the form of a lab report so that others can learn, so that others can read, so that um, others can learn from your experiment. And if they want to take on the experiment for themselves, they can do that. So We went through very quickly today. That is good. Are there any questions before we continue?
No, sir.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I'm going to pick out a person now. I know. Let's before we do that. I'm going to ask you. mm, Before we continue,
Huh?
we we are going to look at.
What did you say, sir?
Sir, I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
You hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right. So we're going to use the scientific method now, right? And we're going to try and solve a problem. So let's just solve the TV is not working, right? Let's just go through the steps now. Let's just say the TV is not working. So step one, what would happen here?
Make observation.
Right. So we see that the TV is not working, right? So next step is to say identify the problem. So what would you
So,
do here?
so we would be trying to see what causes
Right.
the TV to break down.
From
Perfect.
not working.
Perfect. So we could plug it in, we could open it to see if there's any damaged equipment, right? And say we find a damaged equipment, say we find a screw that needs to be screwed in. So we'll find that. What would our hypothesis be?
Sir will find a
Or
solution.
maybe
Okay? Say we find a damage, say we have a damaged screen, right? How would we fix this problem? That would be our hypothesis. What would you do?
Sir, we would want to like bring it to like a IT person, sir,
Say
or
we
bring
are,
it.
say we are the IT persons next, right? And we find a broken screen, right? And we want to get the TV back up and running. How would you solve this problem? What would you do? We have a broken screen. How do we fix that?
Sir, we would have to try to get tools that can take out the screen.
All right. So we take out the screen. What we'll do next?
Um,
We would try and find a new screen, sir,
Right.
for the
So we'll
television.
find a new screen. So that would be our hypothesis. If we replace the screen, the broken screen with a new screen, then the TV will work, right? So that would be our hypothesis. That is our solution to the problem, right?
Yes, sir.
The next step is our planning and investigation. So we're going to plan now, right? So we're going to actually carry out the steps. So first part is listing the apparatus and materials that we will need. So what we will need to solve this problem now.
We would
What would you need? We want to replace the screen,
sir,
make money, sir, to buy a new screen.
right? So we need a new screen, right? Yes, we need a new
Yes,
screen, and we
sir,
will,
you would
what
need a
else?
screw.
Screwdrivers
Yes, sir.
and any other form of tools that will help us.
Sir, some wires.
We'll need some wires to connect the screens and whatever. I don't know exactly how to fix the screen, but just an example, right? So we have our materials, we have our tools, and we have our new screen. Then now we'll list the steps. So we'll have some steps now to actually carry out this. So what's the first step?
Take out the screen.
We would first take out the screen, and in order for us to do that, we have to plug out the TV, right? And then, so
And
we're
screw
planning
off
now.
the back of it.
We screw out the back, and we would take out this broken screen. Then what
Yes,
would
sir.
Sir, we would put in the new one.
we'll put in the new one? Then what else? We're going to leave it there. The TV is going to work now.
No, sir, we're going to put on back the back and screw it up.
And then we're finished. The TV is supposed to work now.
And then we're going to plug in at the TV.
And then what does?
So then the TV will continue to work properly.
No, we haven't turned on the TV as yet, right?
Also, we should plug it in and turn it on.
All right, beautiful. So that's our planning stage. Then now we're going to actually go ahead and make these decisions, right? Um, we're going to make sure that we make these decisions. We all agree, or we're all agreeing on steps. Anybody have any
Yes.
problems?
No, sir.
All right, so we all agree. So we determine
No.
the equipment and the method. Then now we're going to carry out the experiment, right? So we're going to actually do what we just said we're going to do, right? We collect and process results. So in this case, our results would be what?
Huh?
What would our results be? The final result would be what? The final thing.
You will have like a new screen for the
We'll have a new
TV.
screen for the TV, and the TV would work perfectly, and we can watch all the SpongeBob that we want to watch, right?
Yes, sir.
And then
Yes, sir.
we'll draw
Yes.
conclusions. So a conclusion would be that what would be your conclusion?
Um. Um.
We
So,
can now watch more movies.
mm,
Like, can now watch movies.
so what was the problem? We fixed the problem.
Sir,
So the screen
the
was,
TV wasn't working.
yes, the TV was working perfect. Then it was caused by a broken screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir. Then we replace it with a new one.
right after we replace it with a new one, then the screen is and the TV is working.
We test it if it's working.
All right, beautiful. And we will of course communicate this with our friends. Then, oh, I fixed the TV. All right. So we're finished teaching for the day. Now you can go over to Google Classroom.
Yeah, the
Um,
science textbook
I'm
are going
sorry.
to be
Say
used
again.
for our testing.
I'm
Sir,
not
I
hearing.
cannot hear. Sir, I cannot hear.
For the person who has a question, could you repeat?
Sir, I cannot hear.
You're not hearing me? Are you hearing me now?
Yes, sir.
Right. I heard a question before. Was there a question?
Yes, sir. I was asking if we will be using the science textbook from last lesson, sir.
For our last one?
From our last lesson, sir.
Um, the the assignment,
Yes, sir.
you were just
We
required. You could use a textbook, of course. That's your resources. You could use a textbook to answer those questions, right? I'll begin marking them today. You should see some results coming in. I have another homework up, a very simple homework for next week Thursday. So you have an entire week to complete that homework. If you go on Google Classroom now, you will see it. Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay, sir.
And
sir.
I'm
let me
looking at
just
it
say,
now. Does it say draw at least 6
right,
safety
right,
symbols which
very
can be
simple.
found in the laboratory?
And I must say that I am very pleased with my grade 7 students. You finish your work on time, right? After I finish the class, I realize persons are already finished, right? This is very good, and I recommend that you continue, right? You're doing much better than other students, right?
Sir? Sir?
Um, hats off to you. Go ahead with a question. I hear a question.
How old are you?
I am very old. All right. So have a nice day, everyone.
You too, sir.
All right. I can't disclose my
Bye,
age.
sir.
All right.
Bye,
Sir.
sir. Bye, sir.
Sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Remember your homework. All right. You can use the 20 minutes that we have left to complete.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the information will be sent to Google Classroom. All right.
Okay, sir.